Ron here, and today I want to talk about why the Democrats needed to beat Bernie Sanders. Yeah. Yeah. This is also going to be a video about how I'm sick and fucking tired of giving the Democratic Party any credit, and I'm refusing to do that now. And also, it's going to be a video about the political reality that we live in. So, this is not going to be fun. I'm not going to have fun doing it, but maybe it'll be informative, and I've had this shit on my mind for a while. Alrighty, so, in order to understand the DNC and their relationship with Sanders, we need to go back to 2008, when the Democrats took control of the House of Representatives, the Senate, and the White House. The Republicans had an internal, sort of report trying to figure out what they did wrong, what they did to alienate so many people. And they settled that it wasn't enough minority outreach. So they took that report and they tossed it out of a window and decided to go with a different strategy. In 2008 and through to 2010, there were a number of, at least ostensibly, radical things that the Democratic Party did. Chief among them being the Affordable Care Act, which, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure history will detail did not work. Could be wrong, but yeah. There were also a number of different environmental protections passed during that time on the federal level. And what this led to was a great deal of pushback from Republicans. But not the same Republicans who had been voted out in 2008. See, in 2007, right before Obama was elected president, there was a housing crash. Thousands of people were forced out of their homes, and the economy went to shit. And in the wake of that, two groups came and tried to seize the momentum and the narrative. The first one, the one that's more well-known, or at least the one that I think is more well-known, is the Occupy movement. They basically took over public spaces and talked about how, hey, maybe having rich people in charge of everything is a bad fucking idea. The other group was the Tea Party. And the Tea Party, as I have said before, as a matter of historical record and account, was very quickly taken over by corporate interests. Not Republican interests, corporate interests. More specifically, the Koch Foundation, for the most part. And so there was a lot of pushback from the Republican Party having to do with these regulations that were being passed, and especially having to do with the ACA. And in 2010, the Democrats were... people who voted Democrat were pretty complacent. They liked the changes that were being made, and they couldn't see how people maybe didn't like them. So what ended up happening was the Republicans came out in force, and the Republicans won a lot of victories. Enough victories that they overtook the House of Representatives, which stymied any progress that the Democrats wanted to make. Incidentally, that there was so much dysfunction on a federal level was intentional. I've talked before about how that's something that corporations want. And also, it's at least part of the reason that Obama's record of passing laws is so much more conservative than people would suppose. More liberal laws just weren't getting through because the Republicans, and specifically... oh, who was it? Was it Boehner? I want to say it was I want to say it was Boehner, wasn't letting liberal things get through. Anyway, so what a lot of people, I think, forget about the election in 2010 is that the Republicans who were being elected were not conventional Republicans. They were Tea Party Republicans. And because the Tea Party represented corporate interests, the Republican Party, the Republicans who were getting elected, represented corporate interests. So, all of that is a very long-winded way of saying the GOP, as it is now, and at least since 2010, has represented the interests of corporations rather than the interests of people. This can explain a number of seeming incongruities with the Republican Party, especially the idea that they're so opposed to any sort of government spending except when that government spending is being spent on corporations. And especially their resistance to any kind of welfare programs. It needs to be understood that corporations, major corporations, and the people who own them, they just want to make more money. Their primary goal, their overwhelming primary goal, is to make more money. So any money that comes to them is good. And any money that doesn't come to them is bad. Also, the more welfare programs that the government has, the more people can rely on things outside of corporate interests to supply them with the things that they need to live. And that means that people who are working for those corporate interests have at least a little more leverage to demand better things from those corporations, whether it be health care or better wages or better protections from hazards, that kind of thing. The second part of what we need to understand about the Democratic Party and their opposition to Sanders is that the Democratic Party pulls a lot of their funding, not as much funding as the Republicans, but a lot of their funding from the same sources that Republicans do. And this is just a practical thing. Corporations and the people who control those corporations control most of the wealth in the country. We have 3 people in the United States. Jeff Bezos, the guy who owns Microsoft, Bill Gates, and that stockbroker guy, whose name I can't remember, who control as much money as the bottom half of the country. It is just more financially salient. It is a better idea. It is more efficient to get money from people who are very wealthy, because people who are not wealthy don't have the money to spare most of the time. So, the result of that is that there is no interest on a federal level between either party. There is no interest in changing the way that things are, changing that corporate control, not just of the government, but of the entire economy. And that's a problem, because the economy is hurting everyone. And I think it's worthwhile to explain that while a lot of money that both parties get goes to funding like political campaign ads and political events, they also needed to maintain day-to-day stuff to pay for offices and pay for warehouse space and pay for office goods and pay interns and secretaries and stuff. The money that they fundraise doesn't just go into advertising, although a significant amount of it does. They need some money at least to maintain their operations on a day-to-day basis. So, yeah. Here's the thing about Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders made it very clear from the get-go that, and this isn't just during this election cycle, this is in 2016 too, he made it very clear from the get-go that he was willing to challenge those corporate interests. He was willing to challenge the corporate interest, the corporate control of the economy. And he made it very clear that he wanted more people to have control over their lives. He wanted to expand welfare benefits and make it so that people had a better position to bargain for better things. And more importantly, Sanders made it clear that as president, he would be willing to shine a spotlight on the places he felt that the Democratic Party was failing the people whom they represented. And as president, that would have been a powerful tool. You would have had a lot of people, maybe not a lot of people, but you would have had powerful people shuffled out of office. You would have had to entirely restructure the DNC. The DNC, the Democratic National Committee, is the business arm of the Democratic Party. So, having Bernie Sanders in a position as powerful as the president would have led to the destruction, let us not be clear about that, of the current hegemony. It would have led to a big fight over who was in control of the economy, whether it was the people in the country or the corporations. And that's ultimately the fight that we're going to have at some point, but that's a topic for another video. But yeah, the Democratic Party needed to keep Sanders from getting into power, specifically because having him in power would have been a stepping stone to stopping the economy from becoming more equitable. It would have made us a little more powerful, given working people more opportunity to do the things that we need to do. Made it easier for us to survive, and more importantly, easier for us to hold accountable the corporations that are destroying the planet and destroying our lives. And yeah. So I think that there's something else that I need to be clear about. I've said that I'm not going to vote for Biden in the election, and I want to be clear. I'm not saying that voting for Biden is bad, necessarily. And I'm not saying that people who vote for Biden are bad people, because they're not. There's an argument that can be made about harm reduction and Trump being wildly, shockingly incompetent and a fascist. And on one hand, these are arguments that I would have a hard time countering, because truthfully, okay, hypothetically, if I took a dump in a paper bag, and I lit that paper bag full of my dump on fire, and as a consequence of being lit on fire, that paper bag full of my dump did nothing but shout ethnic slurs 24/7, every minute, every day, that bag, that burning bag full of my poo, would still be a better president than Donald John fucking Trump. So, I'm not saying that Biden is bad, or that he's worse than Trump, or even better than Trump. What I'm saying when I say that I won't vote for Biden is that a vote for Biden is meaningless. Because Biden is not willing, has made it very clear, has made it more clear than any other person running for office, more than any other person in the Democratic field, that he is not willing to challenge those corporate interests. And people like Biden, and people like Trump, and even people like Obama, those people are not the problem in and of themselves. They are symptoms of a much greater problem. That problem being that a handful of major corporations control our entire economy. And unless that changes, nothing is going to change. I'm not saying that voting for Biden is good, or that it's bad, or that you're a good or bad person for doing it. My position is that a vote for Biden is meaningless, because it would be supporting a status quo that never existed. Or if it did ever exist, it only ever hurt people. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say about that. I am all said out. Regular links are in the description of the video. That is my Curious Cat if you want to send me anonymous questions, or if you just want to send me abuse. Plenty of people do that. I usually just delete it. I am the rocks of eternity. Crash upon me and be broken. You can go see what sort of nonsense I'm up to on Twitter. I got Thought Slime to say that he was going to vote for Vermin Supreme yesterday, and earlier today I got Maggie Mae Fish. I called out Maggie Mae Fish for using the words from Slitzers as her own personal idea, and I also made a post about how I need to make a video today. I have a link to an email account if anyone wants to send me an email specifically for the purposes of asking me to participate in leftist projects. I'm always up for that, but I don't know what you think I could possibly bring to the table to improve any sort of leftist project that you're up for doing. Also, my Ko-fi account is in the description of the video. If you found this video to be entertaining or informative or valuable in any way, please feel free to send me some money. I'm not going to... I don't want anyone to feel obligated to send me any money, because all of this is a labor of love. I'm doing this because it's very important to me. And while I will admit that Sanders getting rat-fucked was a blow to morale, it just demonstrated to me that we can't go forward the way that things are, and we need to start doing things in a different way. So I'm going to keep doing these because doing these is important to me. So, no obligation, but if you want to, I'm not going to say no. Yeah. I'm hoping to have that lengthy video about cancel culture. The poll, by the way, ended up more people wanted to see the lengthy version of the video than the split-up version of the video, so that's how I'm doing it. That should be up either Saturday or Sunday, with any luck. That's what I'm aiming for. But, I never feel comfortable making promises. So, yeah. But that's gonna be the next video. So, yeah. Until we get there, take care of yourselves and vote local, alright?